The 2014 Monaco Grand Prix. The front row was locked out by the Mercedes of Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, as was normal at the time, while Red Bull locked out the second row with Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Ricciardo, and it was an all-Ferrari third row with Fernando Alonso and Kimi Räikkönen. Meanwhile, at the back of the grid, Jules Bianchi lined his workshop in P21 after he'd qualified P19, but received a 5-place grid penalty for a gearbox change. A grid penalty is never ideal at a track like Monaco, but that wouldn't stop him from stunning the F1 world by picking up his and his team's first points in Formula 1 on that race, which happened on this day 9 years ago, and here is how he did it. So we were already one car down at the start of the race after Pastor Maldonado in the Lotus failed to even get going for the formation lap, and then he never took the start of the race. So that was already one place up for Bianchi, but Maldonado not being there when they all came back around to line up on the grid would come back to bite him later on. When the lights went out, then he gained a place off the line as he got past his teammate Max Chilton at turn 1, while further up ahead in the mid-pack, Sergio Perez was under threat from Jenson Button, and Perez became the first victim of the streets of Monte Carlo after he tangled with his former teammate at Mirabel, sending the Mexican out of the race and drawing out the first lap safety car. Adrian Sutil found himself in the wars as well with all that, as he pitted at the end of the opening lap for near nose, and Romain Grosjean also chose to pit then, but there was no wing change, that was the pit stop. All that meant that Bianchi was up to P16 after the first lap of the race, and he would gain one more place up to P15 on the first lap of the restart, lap 4, when Sebastian Vettel found himself being struck with car problems, and he fell to the back of the grid and would then retire on the following lap. Sadly for the Red Bull family of cars, Vettel wouldn't be their only retirement, as Danny Kvyat and the Toro Rosso followed the 4-time world champion into retirement at the end of lap 11, promoting Bianchi up to P14 behind the caterham of Kayumu Kobayashi in P13. Things calmed down for a while, not too much happened, but this is when Maldonado not being there when they all came back to the grid for the start would come back to haunt Bianchi, and also Esteban Gutierrez and Max Chilton, as they had all ended up parking in the wrong grid slots as a result of the Venezuelan not being there, and all three got handed 5-second time penalties. Lap 24 came about, and we had another victim of the narrow streets of Monte Carlo, this time Adrian Sutil crashing at the Nouvelle chicane and bringing out the safety car, which inevitably brought a flurry of action into the pit lane, of which Hamilton wound up being a bit pissy about, but mind you, when is that man not complaining about something over the radio in Monaco? Rosberg was still leading the race, by the way, he led every single lap, but Bianchi was among those who pitted, and when he did, he served his 5-second penalty. An action that would come back to bite him later on, but for now, he rejoined the race still in P14 behind the safety car. And it was during this safety car when shit hit the fan for Kimi Räikkönen. After making such a great start and getting up to P3, he had gotten a puncture during the safety car when running said P3 and was forced to pit once again. He rejoined in P13 just ahead of Bianchi, who nearly got the fin. But the safety car soon came back in and racing resumed as normal. The Mercedes was still P1 and P2, Ricciardo was up to P3, Felipe Massa was yet to stop for Williams, up in P5 I believe, and Bianchi was behind Räikkönen, who was behind Kobayashi, till the end of lap 35, that is. As it was then when Räikkönen got past the Japanese driver on the run out to the swimming pool chicane, and Bianchi seized his opportunity, following Räikkönen through and squeezing his way past the caterham with a firm but fair move at Rascasse, and that overtake is one of the memorable moments of that race that we all go back and think of when we think of Bianchi that afternoon at Monaco. That overtake. You need to be opportunistic and take your chances at a track like Monaco, and that's what Bianchi did to put himself up to P13, which became P12 at the beginning of lap 38 when he got past fellow Frenchman Jean-Eric Vergne up Beau Rivage, when the Toro Rosso driver was exiting the pit lane after serving a drive-through penalty for an unsafe release earlier on. Bianchi didn't pull a off with Vergne though. Things calmed down in general, and Vergne stayed right up ahead of him and was pushing him for quite some time until his engine failed him on lap 51, becoming the latest car to fail at this particular racetrack that afternoon. But Bianchi continued on minding his own business, minding his own race, and keeping himself out of trouble. And that would gain him another place on lap 56 when the Mercedes engine in the back of Valtteri Bottas's Williams car gave out. Now that put Bianchi up into P11 and put him within touching distance of a first points finish, and that touching of a chance would turn into a grasp of a chance when at the end of lap 60 Esteban Gutierrez did what we've all done on the F1 games before and clipped the inside barrier at Rascasse, sending him out of the race and sending Bianchi up into P10, the final points paying position. And don't lie, we've all clipped the inside wall at Rascasse on the F1 games. If you say you haven't, I'm willing to bet you're lying. Or you're a god at Monaco. However, finishing in the points wasn't again to be so simple for the Frenchman, as Bianchi found himself under investigation for a second time that afternoon, this time for serving his previous 5-second penalty under the safety car, something you weren't allowed to do, and he got dinged with a 5-second penalty for it on lap 65. Points still wasn't impossible, he just had to make sure he stayed over 5 seconds ahead of Grosjean behind him, or hoped for another retirement or two up ahead to make his chance a little bit better, as there was a bigger gap from Grosjean to the next car behind him. But the racing gods must have been smiling on Bianchi that afternoon, because while there were no more retirements up ahead, there were problems, specifically for Kimi Räikkönen and Kevin Magnussen. On lap 73, Räikkönen was in P8, he had caught up to Kevin Magnussen in P7, and at the lowest hairpin, the Ferrari went for a move down the inside on the McLaren, but it didn't quite work out, and both ended up parked up at the barrier. Not out of the race, but falling down in the order and well out of the point scoring chances, and crucially for Bianchi, crucial because Grosjean was closing in, it put him up into 8th place, meaning his chance of finishing in the points with the bigger gap behind Grosjean, it was almost certain. Bianchi crossed the finish line 1 lap down on race winner Rosberg in 8th place, but dropped to 9th as he wasn't 5 seconds clear of his countryman Grosjean. But that doesn't exactly matter all too much. He was still finishing in the points for the first time in Formula 1, giving him and Marussia their first points in F1. The first points scored by the teams that came in 2010. It was only 2 points, but for a small backmarker team like Marussia, it was huge. Monaco 2014 proved that Jules Bianchi had so much promise for the future and was destined for great things in Formula 1, but as we all know, we never got to see that promise, as we all know what happened in Suzuka 2014 that led to his death on the 17th of July 2015. He was for sure destined to be world champion and was destined to one day drive for Ferrari, something former Ferrari president Luca di Montezemolo stated in the wake of Bianchi's passing, saying that Bianchi was the driver Ferrari had lined up to replace Kimi Räikkönen. That couldn't happen, of course, and it was Bianchi's godson Charles Leclerc who eventually replaced the 2007 world champion. Can't help but think that if Suzuka 2014 did not happen, the current Ferrari lineup would be Bianchi and Leclerc, and I surely cannot be the only one who thinks that would be one hell of a lineup. But while we're here and speaking about Bianchi, the thing that I find a little bit eerie toward it one way about his accident was that with Martin Brundle predicting it twice. Have a listen to this. First one is from 1998.
This always terrifies me when you get a John Deere coming into play. If one car can make it into there, all of the cars can make it that far. And the day that one day something's going to end up underneath that tractor, it really terrifies me. The yellows are out. The drivers clearly have to respect the waved yellow, the flashing yellow neon sign there as well. But you know, mechanical problems happen, driver brain fade happens, and it just used to terrify me. In Hungary, they bring out JCBs. I'm not sure which I'd rather go underneath.
And then the second bit is from the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix. It's after Sutil has gone off.
Sutil's 7th retirement, but where's the car? How quickly can they get out of the way? Are others going to be aquaplaning on or spinning off in the same point? Something that's a bit sensitive to me, because it happened to me.
Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and while you're at it, place your bets. How is the Monaco cars gonna strike Leclerc this year, and which Leclerc do you think it's gonna strike? Because remember, there is more than one Leclerc racing at Monaco this year. Charles in F1 and Arthur in F2. Who's it gonna strike and how? Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.